So hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're gonna dive into a couple things here pretty quick. I'm not really into the whole unboxing thing. Like, I don't buy products and then just wait until they get here and then film video of me taking the whole thing out of the package and giving you my initial thoughts, because initial thoughts on things that you just took out of a package don't really matter, you know? Like, for me, performance is everything. I want to know what it does when I really get it out there and test it out. So, first things first, this is a bipod extender that I kind of make, it's kind of a homemade deal. I've got two 30 millimeter scope rings, and I can move them back and forth depending on the length of the pick rail that I hook them to. These are 1/2 inch nuts on these scope rings, which is really handy. I actually like that setup. It's not as fast as a quick disconnect, but it's pretty quick because you can just use 1/2 inch one of these, or like any 1/2 inch wrench, whether it be just like an open end or a closed end crescent wrench, as you would call it, or some people call them, or if you were to use an adjustable wrench. You could easily take these on and off pretty quickly. From there, this bipod setup, this is a 30 millimeter accessory ring, accessory mount. So you would clamp this normally on a 30 millimeter tube scope, and it's got a built-in Picatinny rail. And the bipod itself has a Picatinny mount. So hopefully that's focusing okay for you guys. But it's got a Picatinny mount. So you mount that to the pick rail accessory mount, and then you use the scope rings to mount it to the pick rail on the bottom of the rifle stock or chassis or whatever it's in. If you have a pick rail mounted down there, that's what makes this easy. Didn't want to go down the whole Arca rail mount, though I could have done that. This particular bipod, as you can see, these are polymer legs. Even though this looks very close to an Accutac bipod, it is not an Accutac. This is about 1/10 of the price of the equivalent Accutac, and I just want to try it out. I mean, for literally less than $50, like $49, I bought this bipod. It's on a monoball joint here in the middle, so if you loosen it up, this thing will turn all the way around. It will go forward a little, it will go back a little, side to side a little, like it's on a monoball. And the only control to tighten it up is right here in the middle, and it's just like a thumb lever. But man, I'm telling you, once you get it tight, it is freaking tight. And so far, I have tested this out on the 1 mile shoot on the rifle, and when I took this rifle out to go 1 mile, that was the first time that I actually tested this bipod, and I had to use all the leg extensions all the way out on one side, and they were kind of shortened up on the other because I was shooting on an unlevel, uneven playing field, and worked out good. And as you can tell, there's some dirt and grime and stuff in there, and that just comes from shooting the thing. But one thing I will say as far as the specs goes, the equivalent Accutac bipod would be I believe a 7.5 to 10 inch. This one is 9, or what is it? It's 7.5 to like 9 inches or something. It's a little bit short of what the Accutac range is on the feet, so it's not quite the same thing. And the legs are made out, they're a polymer material, they're not aluminum. The only thing that's really aluminum is your little catch here, this part. And then the inner leg part is aluminum. But other than that, I mean, super solid little bipod. And then I guess the specs on the aluminum tube. This is a aluminum tube I bought. As you can tell, this is not a normal aluminum tube. This is not particularly a lightweight one. This has a 5 millimeter wall on it. So wall thickness is 5 millimeters. Outside diameter is 30 millimeters. Inside diameter is 20 millimeters. So it's a pretty thick, solid piece of aluminum there. And I mean, even under several 100 pounds of force, this is not going to flex or bend. The bipod will fail long before this tube bends, I guarantee it. So, not really a lightweight deal, but I wanted to know for sure that I was not going to have any flexion in this tube, and I was going to get the most rigid, solid setup that I could get out of it. So, moving on to the rifle. Kind of move this back out of the way. So this is the rifle that I used for my 1 mile shot with 308. Now, it actually was not in this chassis when I made that shot. It was actually in the factory stock that it came in. This rifle, for those of you that don't know, is a Ruger American, but it's in 308, but it is a TALO distributor exclusive. This rifle came with a factory 16-inch barrel. So it's a short barrel version. They didn't make a lot of these. They were a limited run. So a little different. It does use the ACIS mags or AICS mags. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but those pattern magazines. And it shoots okay for a cheap rifle, even though it was a distributor exclusive, so it costs a little bit more money, but I specifically wanted the short barrel out of it. That's what I wanted. I wanted a short 308. I wanted a 16-inch barrel, bolt action 308. Just for practical use. Like, I wanted kind of a compact setup. You know, and on top, obviously, I've got an Arkin optic, Arkin rings, actually Arkin one-piece scope mount, so 20-minute scope mount, and it's sitting on top of an EGW custom rail. So this is a 40-minute rail. So I've got 40 minutes plus 20 in the scope mount. I'm running 60 minutes of angle on this thing, and so that helped make that 1 mile shot possible with this short of a barrel. A lot of people don't know that, and I'm totally going to really, I haven't made the long version of the 1 mile shot video yet, and the reason why is I literally, with the holidays and everything going on, I have not had the time to get into editing it, because it's going to be over an hour long of me and Garen shooting both of our little short rifles. I mean, in all honesty, like, we started out at 1,230 yards and then backed up to a mile, so we got a lot going on there. So this is the EP5, and it's the 5 to 25 power 34 millimeter tube. I know some people may be thinking that, hey, your scope ring is pretty close to your control group, but it's actually not right up against it. It really isn't. And I've had some people comment on that before in some other videos. This thing tracks fine, and it shoots fine all the way out to a mile. Literally, my dope getting to a mile was only off by 2 minutes of angle. And that was the first time, like, I literally had tested the rounds at 100 yards, come up with what my theoretical zero would be using that ammunition, because I'm running so much angle on the rail and the mount that even with the scope turret bottomed all the way out, like, this thing turned all the way down. We'll get there eventually. That's it. So with it bottomed all the way down, I'm still shooting high at 100 yards by like 10 inches, like almost 10 inches. And so I come up with the particular bullet, the particular velocity I'm running. My theoretical zero, mathematical zero, is actually a little over 300 yards. So a little pad is like 322 yards. And so using that as my zero, 322 yards, I built my dope chart using the ballistic coefficient, the ammunition, the muzzle velocity I'm running. And to hit that target at a mile, it gave me a specific amount of drop. And so I dialed it up, and took a couple shots at the big target, which was a 22-inch target at a mile. Could not tell where I was hitting, so I think I made like a total of 3-4 shots at that target. Couldn't tell where I was hitting, and so I thought, well, hey, I'm just going to add a couple minutes to this thing and then shoot at the small target. And I did, because the small target was in a little bit of a better area. It was more visible, even though it's a smaller target. The sunlight was hitting it good enough I could actually see it better. And over in that area, it wasn't in the shade. I could see where the bullet impacts were. And just so happened, the extra couple minutes of angle, I literally pulled the trigger that first shot and hit that 10-inch target. And I just thought that was really awesome. So it only took me 2 minutes more than what my dope said I needed to get to that 1 mile target. And there's some other ballistics I want to get into, because I actually tested 2 different kinds of ammunition that day, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. Basically, I kind of want to talk about this Outlier chassis. This thing is a new addition. I put this all together after the 1 mile shot, and it's amazing how stiff and sturdy this thing is. Like, there is almost no flex in this chassis. And I will actually give you a little bit of a demonstration between the Outlier chassis versus an MDT chassis. So, the Outlier chassis versus the MDT, which, I don't know, it kind of blows my mind. So I'm going to take this bipod off. So we are basically comparing apples to apples here. That way I'm not using the bipod extender on the 308 and then not putting it on the MDT chassis and the 6 PRC or 6.5 PRC. So sounds like my little boy's throwing a fit, trying to get in the bathtub. Alright, so again, here is the end of that. That's where the bipod mounts, on that little pick rail accessory mount that goes on a 30mm tube. And then the other end. And if you're wondering how heavy this actually is, with the bipod on it is 2 pounds and then 2.8 ounces, I believe. So not a lot of weight, but enough that it could be, could be a little uncomfortable for the average guy, I guess, if you're out hunting. Of course, this rifle is not really a light rifle to begin with. It's kind of got a heavier contour barrel. I'm running a big heavy scope on it. But I just kind of wanted you to see what's going on here. So, just kind of snug up this bipod a little bit. Alright, snugged up. It's not torqued down or anything, but snugged up. So I'm going to put a little bit of weight back here at the action. I'm probably pushing down about 15 pounds or so, 20 pounds. No flexion. I'm going to go out here to the end of the barrel and just push on it just a little bit. I'm going to go to about probably 10 pounds of weight. Of course, I don't actually know. It could be a lot more than that. But as you can see, there is a little flexion, and it's back here at this joint where this is all bolted together. But it's not a lot, It's right there at the end of your mounting point, your fulcrum point. This would be the fulcrum. This is the lever. That's your fulcrum point. So I'm going to go ahead and take this bipod back off. We're going to put it in the MDT chassis, and I'll show you the same type of flexion and show you the difference, because it's going to probably blow your mind for, you know, the MDT chassis being twice as much money, give or take. Gotta lean that up there. Actually, I'm going to set it over here so it doesn't fall over. So this rifle here is my 6.5 PRC. And I'm going to set that in there. Go ahead and tighten it up. Now, the forend on this is not as long as the one on the 308. So you get a shorter lever. It takes less, or it takes more pressure to bend that lever. Right, and I'll show you, like from magwell forward, the difference. So you look at that one, and from the magwell forward, it's, you know, according to this is a 15-inch rail on this one. I don't know what that one's supposed to be on the MDT, but if we go magwell forward on this one, we've got an extra couple inches out here at the end. Okay. Now, this is actually a custom built rifle. This is a blueprinted 110 action, a 27-inch preferred barrel, straight, no taper. So if we go out a couple inches forward on this barrel and kind of push down at the same amount of weight, you can see there's more flexion in that. It flexes more down on that than the other rifle does in that Outlier chassis. So the MDT one, and I think it's because these are aluminum, except for they got this thicker outer polymer part to it. The polymer is nice though when it's really cold outside and you're like grabbing a hold of this thing. There's not as much heat transfer between your hand and the forend and even back here. But on that exposed aluminum, the heat transfer is like instantaneous, and it really makes your fingers hurt, you know, if it's cold outside. So I will say the polymer is nice for that, but they used a thinner aluminum wall and they coated, you know, put this polymer outside part on there, so it flexes a little more. I think weight-wise, it's probably not much more. I mean, obviously with the 27-inch barrel on there, quite a bit more weight, especially being this almost, you know, especially being a larger diameter. But I just kind of wanted to illustrate, show you guys that, you know, this MDT chassis, as good as it is, and as much money as they cost, is not as rigid as the Outlier chassis. And of course, I'm not sponsored by Arkin at all. I'm not sponsored by Outlier at all. I have actually, you know, sent them emails about doing some sort of sponsorship or some sort of a affiliate link and stuff, and have never gotten a response from them. And I own, oh man, I own 6 Arkin scopes, including the EP5 Gen 2 with the 7 to 35 power. This is their big flagship one. And on this particular rifle, I'm running a 20 minute of angle EGW rail, and then a 44.4 MOA spur mount, because, well, I wanted to know what the best was like when it comes to spur mount, so I bought one the spur mount cost more than the scope did, so like, yeah, but whatever. I just want to know what that was like. I want to know what a real high dollar mount was, as far as quality wise goes. And I don't know, it's good. It's a mount for sure. Can't say much other than that about it. I mean, it's beefy as heck. It's got a level built into the back of it, which is cool. But is it better? Does it do the same job better than the other scope mounts, like the Arca mounts and stuff? You decide on that end. I have no idea. So take this bipod back off, and I'm going to show you, introduce you to another part of my 308 deal, because I think this is interesting, and this is kind of going to be an unboxing for that. So I'm going to take that off there. Dang, bolt knob, grab the box and knock some stuff down off my shelf. So, just for demonstration purposes, we're going to put this back on here like this. Alright, now I'm going to show you guys something that I've been interested in doing. And I'm going to kind of explain why. Because I'm sure there's going to be a couple guys that are like, why do you want to do that? The rifle is shooting just fine. So one is the bag rider deal. When I ordered my chassis, I ordered it off of Arkin's website, and they don't have an option to choose this, I guess, unless you are on a laptop. Of course, I ordered it off my phone, so maybe they do have an option if you're on a computer, but this is the bag rider. It goes in the back here, so you just slide it back there, tighten it up. That's what sits on your shooting bag. Now, the real deal, the real point of this is this guy here. So this is an Outlier barrel. And it is the 308 1 and 8 twist. Look how thick this thing is. This is the full 1.2 inch barrel, and I'm going to mount it in this Ruger American. Now, some people may be asking, why are you wanting to do that? Why are you wanting to change this rifle up? You hit a 10-inch target with it at almost 1,800 yards, 1,798 yards. Why would you want to change the way it's shooting? Well, as you can tell, barrel thickness wise, this thing is an absolute beast. And literally, they advertise that they're under a minute of angle. I haven't really had a lot of issues out of this barrel, but I will say this rifle is a 1.5-minute rifle. Most of the time, and what I mean by that, because I have to explain, most of the time it shoots 1 minute or less. But on occasion, it does shoot bigger than 1 minute of angle, and on occasion up to 1.5 minutes. And I've actually shot some experimental projectiles that were handmade that shot like 4 minutes of angle, like just 4-inch groups. Could not get them to do any better than that with this rifle. So I guess technically, because I have shot those groups, you could say that it is a 4-minute rifle, but with literally any store-bought ammunition that I've tried, and any of my other hand loads with, big name projectiles like Hornadies or Burgers or I'd say the most obscure and the most exotic one that I'm shooting right now are the Warner Tool Company flatline bullets, and they seem to be doing pretty dang good. I mean, they're shooting about a minute of angle, and I don't expect much more than that from this type of rifle. I don't expect much more than that from, a rifle. It was a distributor exclusive, about $750 or so, give or take. Sub $1,000 rifle. Before I put an optic on it, of course, I'm running a sub $600 optic and mount. The only thing is the rail was a custom rail, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to be able to shoot as far as I could with it. But as far as the action and the barrel goes, the parts that matter and the trigger, those are all factory. Those are just factory parts, Ruger American parts. So I'm kind of turning this thing into more or less a pretty custom build, starting with the chassis, the Outlier chassis, and then starting with the Outlier barrel. Have not looked at really upgrading the trigger, although this one does have the M Carbo spring kit in it. I do have that in there, and it is about 2.25 pounds, 2.5 pound trigger pull is where it's sitting right now. Factory was about 5. So I have modified the trigger just a little bit. So hopefully with this real heavy, short, stubby, rigid barrel, of course it's a 16-inch barrel. It's the same length as the other one. It's just thicker, like a lot more material there. Hopefully less harmonic vibrations because of that. Hopefully it's affected less by harmonics. And really at this point, I'm not sure how much harmonics play into my accuracy. But, so that's where I'm going. Outlier chassis, Outlier barrel, Ruger American Action. Still keeping it 16 inches. I want to keep it as short as possible. Compact use, but I want the accuracy to increase. I want it to go from a solid 1.5-minute rifle to go to a solid minute rifle. And I think, that would be cool. That's where I want my accuracy to be. I'm not one of these people that is just going to spend tons and tons of money tuning loads and getting it down to that half-minute or even a quarter-minute of angle accuracy, because honestly that takes way more money and time than I have. And so if I can get it at a minute, if it'll stay at a minute on the regular, so like 1 inch at 100 yards or less on a regular basis, that's totally fine for me. In all realistic scenarios, that's plenty good accuracy for this thing. So as long as I'm doing my part on the back end of this rifle, 1 minute of angle will allow me to hit a 10-inch target at 1,000 yards consistently. And so even though I did hit a 10-inch target with this barrel, shooting some 1 minute ammo at almost 1,800 yards, that is not consistent. I'm going to do that maybe 1 out of 20 shots. It's not going to happen every single time I pull the trigger. But if I could hit a 10-inch plate at 1,000 yards, say 8 or 9 out of 10 times, I will be totally happy with that kind of accuracy. That would be awesome. As long as I'm doing my part and reading the wind right and doing all the calculations and the holds right, that's the way I want to go. So that's my next move. It's going to be interesting for sure, because that barrel does add quite a bit of weight. That barrel weighs 5 pounds by itself, and it's just a 16-inch barrel. But yeah, the machining looks good as far as I can tell. I mean, it's all right for a under $200 barrel, because I took advantage of their discount codes and stuff. And so I got this barrel for like, it was under $200. Well, it put me over $200 just adding the bag rider to the package. So we're gonna see how it goes. What I've kind of messaged back and forth to Outliers, it's just a samey spec 308 chamber, so not match grade or nothing. Does not have a longer throat for shooting heavier bullets out of it, even though it is a 1 in 8 twist. So that's going to be a little better than the 1 in 10 on here, because I'll be able to run a little heavier bullet and maybe get a little more accuracy out of it. At least I'll be able to stabilize a heavier bullet, and that's kind of the goal, because right now I'm running a 208 grain Hornady, and I'm also running a 180 grain flatline, or I've run some 200 grain Hornadys. So for shooting long range, I'm all about as heavy as I can get with the projectile and still remain stable, because I'm getting the longest bullet with the highest ballistic coefficient. That's what I want. The speed does not bother me. 2,400 feet per second, I'm totally okay with. But other than that, we will see you guys later in the next video. Hopefully have this thing back up the range with this barrel on it and see what kind of accuracy we can actually get out of it. See if it's better than the factory Ruger American barrel, which is this is a 5R button rifle barrel. This is also the factory one is a 5R button rifle barrel. So the way they're made is the same. I don't know if the machining on the chamber and all that stuff is the same. I don't know if the bore from this end to that end is more in line than that one. Those are things that we just don't know. I don't own the equipment to measure that accurately, so I don't know. Hopefully maybe the bore on this one is perfectly true end to end and not off by like a couple thousandths or something. And then, compared to this one, who knows? That factory barrel on this Ruger American may be the best factory barrel that Ruger's ever put out, and I just don't know how to load ammo. Or it could just be kind of an average, one that they make, and, it's going to shoot about as average as it gets for Ruger. Who knows? Or it could be a terrible one, and most of their other guns shoot better than this one. I don't know. These are all variables that we don't know and don't really have a way of testing. So, yeah, we're just going from kind of shooting off the hip here, doing what we got with what we got. So we'll see you guys next time in the next video. Thanks for watching.